this is the Sony PVM-20s1WA. The tube is 20 inches in size, and it's rather unusual that it is a widescreen. This is a widescreen PVM, I think the only widescreen PVM that Sony made. This one was built in the year 2000. They may have possibly debuted in the year 1997. I've read about the specs on the monitor from a catalogue back in 1997. The tube is the typical curved Trinitron tube, it's not a pure flat. The line count of the monitor is 300, which is rather low sounding. It is not a HR Trinitron tube, so it is not a high resolution tube. Probably some leniency needs to be given for the fact that it is a widescreen tube, and when calculating line count that may actually have an effect on the line count itself. I'll put a link in the description to Wikipedia's talk about line counts on monitors, but as it is, it's obviously a low line count. It's not a HR Trinitron tube. So we'll take the camera off the tripod and have a closer look at the buttons on the front. So there's your speaker grill. You can hear the sound of PlayStation 1 hooked up to the monitor. There's the model. Again, the little handles at the front on both sides. Up there, your Trinitron badge, no HR. Tally lamp. Indicator. I've got a Wii sensor bar on top. The Wii's not going right now, it's the PlayStation, as I just said. On the front you have the typical button selection. A input, B input, SDI, input, RGB external sync, and the other ones. That's pretty common configuration amongst the PVMs of that time. As far as your adjustment knobs are concerned, there you've got the typical lot as well: aperture, brightness, chroma, phase, contrast and volume. Power on and off. So that's your front. Obviously Sony had to make some different parts for this model, being a widescreen. You can see that the bezel, if you're used to the depth of the bezel, this one's probably at least double or triple the thickness on its depth. Carry handles on the side, 3 screws to hold the case in on the side. Same on the other side. As for your inputs, again, it's the typical affair. There's a white power cable going into the IE socket. Go up to the power. There, serial number, model number again. Takes 100 to 120 volts, multi-volty. For Southern Hemisphere, it's a proper Aussie model, as is denoted by the A on the end of the model number. Connections, input A, B and C, S-video in C, composite in A and B, and then there's the all-important RGB and component on the bottom row, and sound in and out, only mono sound, so there's only input for one sound channel, and then there's your sync on the end, remote there, and also there is the cutout section available for the optional SDI input board. Hasn't been taken advantage of. Obviously if you were to incorporate that board, you'd cut out those there and then put the card inside, and the inputs, B and C inputs, would stick out of the 2 holes that you've just made. Okay, we'll undo the cover and take it off. You will note that on most monitor covers that they are a U-shaped, which it is a U-shaped essentially, but it does actually taper in on the bottom here. We'll have a little quick look at that when I take the cover off. So again, it's a bit more customized, and again too, there is a portion on the edge there that sticks out on the cover as well. It's usually the whole sides are completely flush, but the widescreen model here does stick out a little bit. So with the back off, you can see the shell here. You can see that if you're used to what these look like, they are essentially U-shaped, but it does have this front edge that comes out to the side a bit, so it is a little bit different in design from the typical covers. So let's have a look what we can see. Again, sort of typical affair. The shielding here is a bit different in shape. I think they usually cover that area more so, or certainly a bit different somehow. There's your power supply. sitting upright there, neck board on the back. It's got this little additional board here, you don't always see that in the Sony monitors. Just sitting upright right there, and then your main board down on the bottom. And if you were going to put the SDI kit in the boards are quite big, they would fill this whole space here. They're quite wide and high. They usually slot in on those two squares there, and you screw it in to hold it firm, and it'll sit across all the way across there directly, and the connectors will go through there. As I said before, and there's a few cables you'd use to hook it up. So the tube is Sony. I don't actually know where it's made. I can't see where it's made on that label, but it is Sony. And there is the date that this was manufactured and model number again. So there you go, that's essentially the inside. Convergence rings are all in place, factory default. And now we'll have a look at the monitor running. As you can see, the Wii is running on the monitor here. There is a button on the front that I showed before, amongst the other buttons, that is for controlling widescreen and 4:3 aspect ratio. You can toggle it at any time. Works on the component input, works on the RGB input, and no doubt it works on the S-video and the composite. But ideally you'd want to put it into 4:3 mode for games intended for 4:3. But while we're at the Wii, we'll have it in widescreen mode. So I've just soft modded this Wii because I finally got Artemio's 240p test suite on the Wii, which is handy for testing. So there it is there. I should put a link in the download for that as well. It's free. So what I really like about using the Wii is that we can, if I can find it, we can actually go up to 480p, which is nice to do. You can only do that on component with the Wii, but as you see, the monitor is not compatible. It's not a multi-format monitor that goes up to 480p and 720p and 1080i, so unfortunately that doesn't work. So you got a whole selection 480i, sort of mixtures of 480i of 240p assets. There's all sorts of things. Everything works. That's normal. That small square up there. Everything works as expected except for 480p, unfortunately. This test suite has expanded in its tests that can be done since the last version I've got on other consoles, but I just want to get a grid. Here we go. So it's pretty straight. Convergence looks pretty good. Get a different sized grid. Oh, snares of Genesis. Linearity. Another linearity there. A little bit of misconvergence in that corner there. Grey ramp. Even that's set pretty good. Yeah, so that's the Wii there in component with those tests. Now I'm just going to finish the video off with the PlayStation hooked up. I've just hooked up the PlayStation to the monitor. The monitor is still set for component from when the Wii was connected. This is a trap that new players often fall into. You may hook up your RGB console, but you won't get the proper picture because it's set for component. So what you need to do is obviously switch it to RGB, which that has improved it, but there's still no sync, or the sync's not being correctly taken in. So you just need to press the external sync button and then you'll have sync. So that's all you need to do. Some monitors it's a little bit more cryptic, it's harder to actually change things. On the BVMs in particular, they have some much more hidden sort of ways of working, but it's pretty straightforward on the PVMs. So this is Strider, the Japanese version for PlayStation 1. I haven't played it much, but Capcom's done a good job with it. I'll go into 4:3 because there's no way I'm going to play that in widescreen stretched like that. There's no way. The 4:3 mode's pretty good. It's pretty straight down the sides. So really this monitor is very straightforward. Picture's good, it's Sony, so of course it's going to be good. It is a low line count though, however. It might not be quite as sharp as some, but it's very serviceable still. Pity that doesn't have 480p and upwards support. As far as availability is concerned, it's actually quite uncommon, if not rare. It's a bit of a mystery to me. I don't know if I take that it wasn't a popular monitor from Sony because there just doesn't seem to be a lot around, and I don't really understand if businesses in general didn't have a need for it, but you would have thought so with the advent of widescreen getting sort of popular towards the end of the 90s and onwards. That would have been a much cheaper option than a widescreen BVM, that's for sure. Anyhow, it's quite a nice monitor, and thank you for watching once again, and stay tuned for more. Bye.